Alright, hello and welcome everybody to another round of TFR eSports Season 24. It is round 2 and Australia, and this is going to be a fantastic round here. The F2 race earlier was extremely chaotic, as we saw. If you guys checked out the other stream, it was absolute chaos from start to finish. Changing weather conditions really played a factor into this one, so we'll see if that happens here again today. In the commentary box, it is myself, Patrick Coleman, aka Rekus, and I'm here alongside Oracle, who actually competed in the last race. How are you, Oracle?
Thanks, mate. Thanks very much for having me in the commentary box with you. Yeah, what a race that F2 race was earlier on. Both the sprint and the main race. I mean, I ended up on the more unfortunate side of it, but from a neutral perspective, it was probably a crazy race to watch. Let's just hope the F1 race here, both the sprint and the main event, provide the same level of entertainment that the F2 race did, because that would be nice and tasty.
And hopefully with a lot less contact as well, because there was contact aplenty in the F2 race earlier. I mean, I know F2 is very competitive. And I mean, this is one of the most competitive grids we've had here at TFR Esports. And I mean, it's always been very competitive here in F2 and in F1, but F2 just seems to be a little bit more on the chaotic side. But funny enough, the first race... Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the F2 grid, there's definitely competition. I think as you gradually drop down the order, the cleanliness of the racing seems to decline. You know, I spent my first race in Bahrain near the front of the pack the entire time, and it was pretty clean. But today, once I dropped down to the bottom of the pack, and you have to sort of move your way back through cars, especially when you had wet weather into that, it was very, very. People get bashed all over the place. So you know, it's definitely very competitive. Though I agree with you on that fact.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is a very chaotic track in general. If you remember the real life Australian GP earlier on in the year, or in March, it was very chaotic. The first race I commentated for TFR was actually F1 in Australia. It was actually round 1 of the season at that time. So good to see that Australia is still very early on. This is a track where you can do a lot of good battling. You can take some very aggressive lines, as Keezy is going to go ahead and navigate the final few corners on this racetrack. He's going to put pedal to the metal and try to nail this final corner to set the first lap time of the session, and it is going to be a time good enough for P1 at the moment, but that's quickly to change. A 1:16.650 that immediately was usurped by the other RB of Aaron. Aaron going ahead in the other RB and setting up fantastic time, currently a second ahead of anybody else.
Time that's a whole 1.4 seconds, and the fastest dry F2 time that we had earlier, 1:16.5 being the quickest of that session in the sprint qualifying. So yeah, it's that just shows the level, the difference between the quality in F1 and F2. It's the main difference is the pace, obviously, and yeah, what a time that is. He's a whole 6/10 ahead of second place as well still at the moment, even after more times have been posted. So that is looking to be one hell of a lap from Aaron there.
Indeed, yeah. Quite a few new faces since the last time I was here. Mad Jonas goes ahead across the line. Good enough for P8 on track at the moment. We're going to take a look at Epic, who was actually in the commentary box earlier on in F2. He's going to make his way into the pits. And now Phantom Fox is going to be going around this track, about to set a time. Last season, he was in the McLaren. Now he's done a race in the Ferrari. And just take a look at the standings. He's currently in 12th. Well, there's only been one race, so he finished in 12th, and he'll be 12th in the standings in that number 19 Ferrari. So far, everybody has set a time, but as you know, because you definitely competed earlier on, you know that this track can get really rubbered in really quickly. The track evolution is insane here at Albert Park. So, I mean, these times are really going to fall down.
Yeah, I mean, it was showed in the F2 qualifying. The first laps that were set were all in the high 1:17s, and by the time the end of the session came round, all the top times were in the low 1:17s, even breaking into the 1:16s, like I mentioned earlier. So, yeah, like you say, track evolution is really key here. There's going to be cars in and out of that pit lane all session, I think, while they try and post better times on the board, because the best way to put a nice time on the board is to get those laps here around the track, while it's getting rubbered in, and yeah, get acclimatized to it.
Yeah, I mean this track really bites, and I think there's actually a track update since the last season of TFR. They did update this track in game. I think this is one of the few tracks they did an updated lidar scan on. So this track is going to be a little tricky, but obviously these drivers have done at least some practice coming into the week, as it's a purple sector there from F1 Lime, who I believe was in the commentary box last week for F1, so good to see a commentator on track, and also the two commentators from F2 earlier on, CJ and Epic, are both on track as well. So F1 Lime is setting really impressive sectors here. He's going to
Yeah,
go ahead and navigate this last few corners, and we'll see what his time is going to be.
let's see what F1 line posts on the board then. Going to be
It's half a
an
second.
improvement. Yeah, improvement on his first time. Still not climbed any positions from that. Interestingly, I was speaking to him a little bit early on. He's good friends with Michael, who actually presented really well in his first appearance in the F2 division. And yeah, Lime plays with him regularly, reckons he's on pace with him. So it'll be interesting to see somebody who, if he's on pace with somebody who topped the F2 leaderboard standings, where he'll place in on this F1 grid. As I noticed, there's still 4 cars yet to post a time. There's still lots of time left in this session, 11 minutes to go, but 4 cars still not posted a time for this sprint race at the moment.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and we're on board now with PSR Bora Alkin in the McLaren, one of the drivers who has yet to set a time in qualifying. Although, unlike F2, I think this is actually the only qualifying session. F2 was a sprint earlier on, and this one is just a full solid race. No sprint for this round, I believe, because TFR does something a little different compared to most leagues. So a sprint may be in one division, but not exactly another. There's not usually 2 sprint weekends back to back. I think it's happened a few times, but PSR Bora from that PSR team is now up into P3 at the moment. A fantastic time from him. And all the drivers with PSR in their name are 2, 3, and 4. They're all right next to each other, so that's pretty interesting. Gonna go on board with Epic the Animal. We'll see if he can have an epic lap time here to go ahead and get himself on the board. He's gonna burn the battery, and it's gonna for P7, Oracle.
Last week, actually did, posted a really good time in qualifying, was leading for the majority of the race, was going up against Imad, who was sitting in 8th place here in this qualifying session. Presented really well, Epic, but it just made the wrong strategy call. Ended up shooting himself in the foot, ended up finishing, I think it was around 4th on the grid from memory. I should check my notes for that really, but unfortunate for him last week. He could have really maximised the points, which he didn't end up doing. So he'll be hoping some redemption here in this race today, but at the moment, just 7th on the board.
Yeah, and actually we have a retirement already. The Alpine of Xstan has retired, and Aaron has improved his lap time. So let's go ahead and take a gap to leader. Now he is 600 or 6/10ths of a second away from Mustafa in the Haas. So I mean, right now Aaron is on a fantastic lap.
Yeah, that's a really strong lap time on the top of the board. As I see another retirement there, GGWPFC there down in 15th is also retired from the session. But yeah, really strong lap time from Aaron. I cannot see that being beaten, to be honest with you, prior to the end of the session. I'll eat my words if it is, but as the rain starts to come down in this qualifying session, that looks a really strong time. It looks like he is nailed on P1 for the upcoming race.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this is kind of similar to what we had in, like, going from the sprint race to the feature qualifying, is that it just was bucketing rain during the qualifying, but we only saw a small glimpse of that rain in F2. Phantom Fox is also going to go to retire. He's down in 11th. So, I mean, there's a lot of chaos going on. There's actually a Racing Bull off the line. That is Keezy, who went off track there into the gravel now. Sometimes it is nice to go ahead and touch grass and, get to become one with nature, but not with slick tires, especially when the rain starts going down. A bit of a science lesson for those of you who may be a bit unfamiliar. Slick rubber and grass/wet surfaces do not mix well at all, as I'm sure you can definitely attest to, as you just went through a wet race a few moments ago.
somebody who went far too early on the medium tyres in the main F2 race, trying to be clever and trying to undercut the majority of the field. Have you spotted something there?
I
Oh,
did.
mad bonus, they're going a bit wide.
D is definitely struggling on those soft tires now. The rain has really kicked in. He was fishtailing all over the place, bumping into quite a few walls there. The champion from last season, who pretty much took a double. And oh, that's a big
Oh, and he's
slide
off.
there. That's a big, big slide there. Turning his Formula One car into a Formula Drift Red Bull. Now, Mad Mike is able to turn a Red Bull into a drift machine, but D, not so much.
Yeah, no, I think this session over. I can't see the rain clearing up before the end of the session. There's some really strong times on the board, and I think that's why the majority of the field are retiring because, like I say, it's really done and dusted. This rain has brought an end to a few people's qualifying sessions, so it's not too much of a mixed-up grid. There's a lot of drivers there that should be where they usually are. But there's also a lot of drivers that are out of position as well, so it should make for an interesting race. The full feature race. So yeah, we'll wait to see what these other cars that are still in the session are doing. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, the nice thing is that we don't necessarily have a Destructors Championship here at TFR Esports because F1 Lime would probably be leading that at the moment because he is missing an entire front wing. And I mean, and
Now,
he's out!
yeah, he's out. Yeah, he's out. He's out. That's a big crash there. That's gonna not help the not help. Well, I mean, he's bottom of the leaderboard anyway in the rain, so it's not too much of a mess, I suppose. But yeah, it's not a great thing to see, really. Let's hope he doesn't struggle as much as that in the race.
Indeed, yeah, so it's going to be an interesting session. Yeah, qualifying wrapped up pretty early. I mean, drivers can still go out, but at that point, they're going to just burn those intermediate tires, which they can definitely use in the race if this rain were to persist. And I think it might persist. I'll have to recheck the weather, but I think it is going to go ahead and persist. Just go ahead and check the weather real quick. Okay, so it's actually going to dry up for a majority of the race, and then the rain is going to come towards the end of the Grand Prix. So,
That could cause some
interesting
real
stuff here.
chaos. That could cause some real chaos because the F2 race was the opposite. The rain was at the start. There was real chaos at the start of that race because obviously the grid is quite bunched together and everyone just seemed to be sort of tripping over each other for the majority of the start of that race. But it'll be really interesting because obviously the rain brings the ability to gamble on strategy and bits and pieces. And it's whoever takes that gamble that could reap the rewards for it, really. But yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see what happens. But it should make it really interesting towards the end of that race. Where it's also about acclimatizing to the lack of grip that you have once that weather comes. Because when you've been driving, I mean, just from doing the F2 sprint race, which was completely dry, to the F1 quali and race, which was wet predominantly, you have to reacclimatize to what it feels like to drive on a track that is wet or dry, or even in that transition phase, because it starts to become grip in areas that there wasn't before, and you have to realize that and start putting your foot down a bit more.
Indeed, yeah, and also, especially if this is your first league race on F125, and the last time you did a league race is F124, the two games do handle quite differently, as the odd number ones tend to be a bit more snappy. You get a bit more kick out of corners, unlike 24, where your car is a bit stiffer throughout corners, and then 22, where turning is basically illegal. um, but yeah, trying to acclimatize to the different weather changes, and also you really got to play that risk versus reward when it comes to your strategy, because it's only going to start raining towards the latter part of the race, and unlike the F2 race, where the sun actually started peeking out and drying out the track, it's going to be overcast up until it rains. So like you said earlier, it's a reverse of the F2 feature race, which is going to be very interesting to see how these drivers kind of learn to adapt, because I mean, most of these drivers really practice in the dry conditions, and then the weather isn't usually announced until the day of the races here at TFR Esports. So yeah, not a lot of prep time really.
But I mean, barely any prep time at all, really, if in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I managed to get a few practice laps in prior to the race because I hadn't raced Australia in any form of wet so far in this game cycle. So I had to get a few laps in to try and test it. I felt confident, but in the end, it was just racing incidents that ended up that costing me. So we could see some of that here as well. I mean, so, just because you're quickest on the dry in the in the qualifying session doesn't mean to say that come the rain you're going to be the quickest in the race, especially when it is quite tight towards the top of that qualifying order.
Indeed. And now we're coming down to the final 2 minutes of the qualifying session. Ended about 5 minutes ago as the rain continues to trickle down here in Australia. And I mean, the only driver who has yet to retire is CJ. But this does give you a chance to kind of, think about your strategy and go ahead and just kind of get in that mental mindset and just kind of cool down, take a breather. Because, I mean, he's starting from P16. He's starting from the penultimate spot on the grid. So, not exactly a great start there for CJ,
Uh,
but he can make his way up.
I mean, it could be purely tactical. Everyone else could be ready to go. They're in the rhythm. They want to begin the race, and
Exactly, yeah.
CJ's holding everybody up. He sees it the opposite. It could be purely tactical, but no, I think, that for me personally, I prefer to go straight into a race. Because you're warm. Muscle memory starts to kick in qualifying, so you can translate that into the race. But I mean, the session is being held up here. So those drivers will be, well, I say they'll be cold coming into the race. This is a talented bunch on this grid, but yeah. Can I just point out as well, another thing is it's nice to see a nearly full F1 grid, and in the F2 races earlier, it was lovely to see a nearly packed out F2 grid as well, because the week prior it was a bit more empty. And I think that's what led to such clean racing in the first round. Was the lack of cars on the circuit, but this week it's nicer to see more packed out grids, and we could be seeing a lot more chaos along with that as well.
Yeah, TFR has been growing quite a bit despite all the behind the scenes shenanigans, particularly with the YouTube channel. But despite all that, TFR in terms of the driver side of things has been growing exponentially. I mean, I think might be the most amount of drivers I have actually seen in an F1 race in quite some time. Going ahead and running through, it is an all Turkish front row with Aaron and Mustafa taking P1 and P2, followed by Bora, Tioman, 301 Will, Emir, Epic, the championship from last season, Amadi, B29, Keezy, Phantom Fox, Mad Jonas, Kevin, Dan, Gigi, CJ, and F1 Lime rounding out our grid. But Aaron had such a fantastic lap there. Almost 6.5 tenths ahead of everybody else, which that is, especially in a grid as competitive as F1 is here at TFR Esports, that is a crazy gap to P2. But qualifying is about that one lap pace, but we have a lot more than one lap here at TFR Esports. You have over 20 laps to go ahead and fight through if you want to go ahead and convert that pole position to a win, which, especially with the tricky weather conditions, is easier said than done.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we're moments away from the grid start here. It's going to be interesting going to that turn one, because that turn one is slightly untraditional. It is a chicane. It's not a complete out and out, slow down, like what Bahrain is, where you sort of have to come back on yourself. You slow the car right down. This is a flowing corner, so there is, you need to be able to take the correct line into it. You can't afford to slow the car right down going through the corner if you want to carry speed through it. So it can cause a lot of chaos in that first corner, and especially the fact that you then got to continue back out and carry speed through the exit of the chicane. It then leads all the way down into turn 3 as well, which is the right-hander going into the sort of S section in the middle of the circuit. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. This first lap could provide some chaos as we get to race start here.
Alright, we see those red lights coming on, and it is lights out, and away we go. And there's already some spins in the backfield. CJ
Crash
and
at the back there.
Oh, that must have been a weird disconnect thing. But yeah, there's two cars just in the backfield. That's CJ and F1 Lime going ahead and just in that backfield, not looking great. A good launch there from Aaron, and lots of positions changing throughout this grid as we see 3 wide in a couple of cases here. And like you said, that first turn is so difficult to navigate. And the Mercedes 3-1 will. Oh, there's a big crash. A massive accident. Gigi is
Oh,
out of the race.
one DNF
And
already,
there's a
yeah.
lot of damage on a lot of these cars.
Yep, lots of damage amongst the whole of the field. I notice that the leaders actually managed to get away and sort of scamper off down the road, but the cars in the middle of the pack and towards the back of the pack, they are the ones that have suffered the most in this. So it's going to pan out to be an interesting race. It's damage, a car out already. We're not even halfway through lap 1 yet, and we've seen some events already. So 28 racing laps left to go. It's going to be an interesting watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, just kind of taking a look through the field, and Phantom Fox has spun on his own under the virtual safety car, and he'll fall to the back of the pack. I mean, there's a lot of cars with damage here. I mean, to the surprise of absolutely no one, considering all those shenanigans up ahead. Phantom Fox, I think, has a few damaged parts. CJ's got some damaged parts. And we're back racing. Despite the caution on screen, we are back racing. And yeah, so a few cars diving into the pits. Mad Jonah is going to dive into the pits, go ahead and repair that damage. And we are back in green flag conditions. There's still a yellow flag towards sector 3. I think that's turn 12 is where that yellow flag is. I think that's Phantom Fox just trying to get going again. He is going, but he is really struggling in that Ferrari, so this might be a retirement for the Ferrari.
Back around again. Yeah, I think he's got a puncture. He's got a rear left puncture, and he's really struggling. Yeah, he's got a rear left puncture. He's really struggling to get it back to the pit lane and keep it in a straight line, keep the nose in front of him. He's just limping it back round there now, so yeah, it's not that the back of the pack's going to catch him. He's going to get in the way, but yeah, just made it into that pit lane.
Yeah, it's a rough day in the office for Ferrari here in the F1 division, but not really a rough day for the Haas's. And I know the Red Bull squad had a quite a rough time in the F2 race earlier, but now, I mean, they're in a pretty decent spot. P5 and P6 now for the Red Bull squad, a third row lockout as they go ahead and just continue. We begin lap number 3, and I mean, it's interesting, just the dynamic of this race. The track is dry, and we've already seen a ton of carnage in the opening laps. Punctures, DNFs, front wing end plates getting sent to the void. There's just so much going on in the opening stages of this race. But the one thing that's going to make it even more chaotic is that rain. And I don't know about you, but I'm actually really excited for that rain, because this is really going to change the whole dynamic of the race.
Certainly, that rain cannot come soon enough in this race. Like you say, the carnage so far has been excellent to watch. As soon as that rain comes, I'm sure there'll be more better. There's a move coming here from Mustafa on Erin into the chicane there.
Yep, he gets the move done in the Haas. He takes the race lead, and now he's going to put pedal to the metal. The two Turkish drivers are close to each other. Actually, I think it's a Turkish 1, 2, 3, and 4. So top 4 drivers. And there's a yellow flag. That is for the McLaren of Mad Jonas, who I think is just stopped. Oh, he's struggling to get grip. So that's the thing I'm noticing about a lot of these drivers, that they're struggling to get grip here on this Albert Park circuit. And it's kind of bizarre considering that this is a dry track. But I do know some drivers will try to learn how to drive without traction control, without ABS. And they like to do it during the competitive sessions. And sometimes it just takes longer to get used to for some people, as I think we're seeing with a few of these drivers.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's the best way to learn when you're turning off assists is in a competitive race, because you never really know how quick you are with assists off until you're up against people in a similar situation. So there is that. But then I also think there's part of it here that, you know, Albert Park is not a grippy track. There are certain areas where you can really get the car to bite. But then coming into the final last 2 corners, there's a low traction area there, and other areas of the track as well, there's low traction. So it is a slippy track. There's overcast conditions could be causing some dampness on the track without actual rainfall. Who knows? But there's also a lot of cold, hard tyres out there at the moment, which I think is probably the answer to our question, really. The hards in this game are definitely not a great tyre. The mediums seem to be the best tyre in the game, but most of the field here on the hard and that could be why we're seeing some spins early on.
Yeah, I mean, you can really make a point for the hard tires being the ideal tire of choice because when you're running the hard tire, yes, you have less grip, but the big bonus of running the hard tire is just the tire life that you have. And you'll just have more tire life, and you can really, if you're gentle on the tires, which is easier said than done, on a track, like you said, that is not very grippy to begin with, and also not to mention that they are cold tires that don't get a lot of grip from the get-go anyway, but it allows these drivers to really hold on to these tires and make this a one-stop race. Now, normally it would be a one-stop race anyway. You'd probably go from the medium to hard or hard to medium. But what these drivers are going to try to do, or at least what they should hope to do, as Aaron tries to send it around the outside, that's a very clean move there from the Racing Bull. And he is up into lead. F1 Lime getting a 3-second time penalty for track limit violations. But the reason why I think these drivers are running on these hard tire compounds is because, simply put, you want to last until the rain because you don't want to make a pit stop for the mediums and then pretty much immediately have to make another pit stop for the intermediates.
I mean, yeah, that's the idea of this, is that they're trying to stretch out that hard tyre so you can connect it straight onto the intermediates as soon as the rain comes. As I think there's some trickles just starting to come down, or is that just my screen? I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, that's what they're trying to do. We'll wait to see if it works. I'm just going to check to see what other tyres are being used in the race at the moment, because it'll be interesting if anybody else has got a slightly different strategy, maybe on the medium tyres. Let's have a look here. It's tyres. Yeah, so there are some medium tyre runners. Kevin Cal in 11th, CJH in 14th, and Mad Jonas in 15th, who I believe has box anyway, and he's boxed onto those medium tyres. But so we'll wait to see what happens for them, whether they get some massive pace drop off, or whether they've done it perfectly, whether those mediums will sort of just start to drop off as the intermediate tyres sort of threshold comes in. So yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to have to be really gentle on those medium tires because it is pretty easy to slide around this circuit. I mean, it's, like you said, not a lot of grip is on this track. And it's going to get grippier as the laps tick on. You're going to feel the track get rubbered in. The track evolution is going to be there. These drivers are going to get quicker. Your cars are going to be lighter because of the more fuel you've burned in those V6 turbo hybrid engines. But still, you got to be really gentle on the tires. And some drivers who may struggle with that tire management, like myself, honestly, if we're being for real here, then it's going to be easier said than done to keep these tires pretty much safe. And it's easier to do it on those hard compounded tires because they have a higher degradation threshold compared to the mediums and the soft tires, and actually even the wets and the inters. But I mean, last season, China, I saw actually the driver who's about to be on everybody's screen, the current lead Red Bull, although he's missing a front right end plate there. But I saw this driver right here go 28 laps on a singular set of intermediates in China and ended up winning the race without a puncture. So, I mean, that was F1 24, but still, I mean, I've seen crazier things happen.
I mean, they could definitely make tyres last the race if you know how to save the tyres. And the only thing in this game, with the addition of proper dirty air, if you're stuck behind a car, like this gaggle of cars at the front is especially, they're sort of stuck behind the leaders, that will wear your tyres out quicker being in the dirty air. So you'll need to really watch that. You may have to drop back a little bit sometimes to try and stay out of the dirty air and keep the grip through corners. That is a factor as well to obviously add into this. But yeah, like while I'm talking about that top four really pulling away from the rest of the field. Fourth place, Tierman Bira there is a whole 5 seconds ahead of fifth place. So that top four running away with it, all within a second of each other. It's just a mini DRS train taking the front of the field.
Yeah, you might as well have that one-way ticket to the DRS train as they go ahead and navigate their way through Sector 1. About to go into Sector number 2 here. And so far, it's been I mean, outside of the chaos from the first 2 or 3 laps or so, especially with some of the punctures and damage that had to be repaired, and some cars that have been in pretty unfortunate situations, namely the 2 cars at the back of the field, actually the 3 cars at the back of the field, that are pretty much in no man's land at this point. But everybody's pretty much just settled in. They got their groove, they got their flow, and they're just driving and trying to really make these positions up. In this top four, you're probably not going to see a lot of moves being made here just because they don't want to burn up that tire. The top four, actually the top 9 or top 10 are all on racing hard, so they're really going to try to hold out to the end.
Yeah, I mean, that front four especially, I think they're quite obviously a mature bunch of racers there, because they, you know, the only moves that have been made are guaranteed passes in the DRS zone where they know they've got a higher top speed, they know they can get past cleanly and not affect corner entry or exit. They're all just sort of using each other at the moment to get away from the rest of the field, stay within their small pack and wait for that opportune moment to create the opportunity to overtake and execute the overtake as well. So it's panning out really interestingly. I think what will split this front pack up is when we have the changeover to the intermediate tyres. It all comes down to who's brave enough to bolt them on first, or who thinks they've got the pace to stay out on the slick tyres in the wet conditions for a little bit longer, maybe extend their stint if the rain doesn't come till really late to the end. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens there. I'm interested to take a look a bit further back towards the field though, and just check in with Epic, because like I say, strong weekend from him last weekend. In the end, losing out on strategy, and right now he's sort of caught at the in the middle of the pack down there in 10th.
Yeah, a few drivers are getting penalties though, and the car directly ahead of him, the 301 Will, the driver in that Mercedes, did just pick up a 3-second time penalty for track limit violations. I think there's, actually let's take a look at the penalties real quick. Yeah, so there's 3 drivers with those 3-second penalties, being 301 Will, F1 Lime, and CJ having track limit violations, and Mad Jonas having a 10-second penalty, which I'm assuming is probably for speeding in the pit lane, which is one of the most heartbreaking penalties to get in this game. And I know quite a few drivers got them in F2 earlier on today as well, but we'll see how the rest of this race plays out. There's still quite a lot of racing to go. Epic is in DRS range, but once again, that dirty air is going to make cornering through this part of the track really, really difficult. Luckily, it is a good high-speed corner. Downshifting into 6th, then going to go ahead and be right back on top of the power. And now you're going to be flat out through this entire section of the track. The DRS is enabled, but the car head also has DRS enabled. So Keezy is going to be under pressure from 301 Will. 301 Will did not have enough real estate to make that pass. Epic is closing that gap ever so slightly, but not quite close enough to really make a move. 301 Will isn't close enough to make a move either, so right now it's pretty much just a race of attrition until we get that rain coming in at what I'm going to predict is probably going to be around lap 24, I'm going to say.
I think it might be a little bit earlier than that. I have no sort of reason as to why. Just for the sake of difference, I'm going to say between sort of lap 20 and 22, because the rain does fall quite quickly in this game. I'm not saying intermediates will be bolted on by that point, but you know, you look at the qualifying session here, it was within moments those rain started beginning to trickle, and all of a sudden the dynamic of the race changes. You have to adjust so quickly to how you handle your car around the circuit. You know, right now these cars at the moment, you know, all pretty planted, all using each other. But as soon as that rain comes, you have to capitalize on those cars that maybe aren't as quick around you, and you know, keep your car planted on the island, and you know, make up the positions.
Indeed, yeah, we're seeing quite a few drivers just kind of going and working together to try to close these gaps. The Red Bulls are doing it. They're still 8.7 seconds off of this top 4 gaggle here, and all 4 of these drivers are from the same country, so a little bit of the countryman camaraderie is being shown here, and 3 of them are in, well, 2 of them are directly in the same team. 3 of them are part of the same organization of PSR. I unfortunately don't know what PSR stands for. If anybody does know what PSR stands for, feel free to let us know in chat, and then the information will be greatly appreciated. If all else, I'll ask CJ later to see if he knows, but still a pretty clean race from this top 4. Like you said, they're not really trying anything risky. They're really just holding position and holding formation until that rain hits. Oh, but Jonas is out of the session. Although it looks like he retired in the pits, so that shouldn't be an issue. Yep, it is a retirement in the pits. No issue there, but that is
I
our
think he
second
probably knew
retirement.
his race was over. You look at the back of that pack there. I mean, Phantom 42 seconds off of CJ in 14th, and even CJ 37 seconds off of 13th. So Mad Jonas must have been in a pretty poor position himself. You don't know what sort of damage he was having, how much of a day, how much he was struggling today. So yeah, that's probably why. I'm sure we'll find out from him after the race. It's getting a little bit slippy towards the front of the pack now. I've just noticed Erin starts slipping around in front, and also the car in fourth for Tierman as well. He's started to just drop back from the that pack slightly, at risk of falling out of DRS at the moment. Still within it by sort of 3 or 4 tenths, but he is dropping back ever so slightly through the corner sections in the middle of the circuit.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but he did catch back up. He's back around that same kind of gap that is kind of uniform in this top four here. We're going to actually go ahead and take a little dip back towards the midfield as there's another little gaggle of cars. It is a B29, it is Keezy and Epic the Animal, all pretty much within a few tenths of a second of each other. So they're going to go ahead and try to fight it out here on the streets of Albert Park as they navigate through Sector 1. Going to make this straight run to Sector 2 before you hit that little tiny dip of a right-hand corner. And then the rest of Sector 2, which is very much flat out. So now it's going to be flat out. Are we going to see a move from Epic Animal around the outside? It's going to try for it. He's going to give it the old college try. He's got DRS now, but so does the Racing Bull. He's going to tuck him behind the Racing Bull to try to get a slipstream. Going to try to fight around the inside, looking for any kind of gap that he could use to make the move happen. But Keezy is not going to give up that position without a fight. Fantastic defense, but on the next DRS zone, he's going to go ahead and try to take it. Epic with an epic move on to Keezy. He gets the move done. The Ferrari is up a position, and that was a beautiful example of pure sportsmanship and class from Keezy and Epic.
Yeah, I mean, great patience there from Epic as well. The move, he sort of recognised that it wasn't particularly on going into the chicane. It's not a great place to overtake there either, unless you can get it done on the straight. You don't really want to be overtaking into the chicane. So he was patient. He realised he had the more overall pace and waited till the next DRS zone to get the move done. That's what you like to see. It's real mature racing there from Epic. Something I just wanted to point out was the two Red Bulls, sitting in 5th and 6th. They're in a sort of two-car mini DRS train. I'm not even sure you could call it a DRS truck, I guess. But yeah, they're sort of in a little battle of their own, towing each other along. And the driver I'd like to focus in on there is I'm a D. He obviously won last weekend's race, showed real true pace throughout the weekend. Looked like one of the fastest cars on the circuit, but struggling down in sort of 5th/6th here today, and getting a 3-second time penalty there as I'm talking about him. So yeah, it's interesting to see the fluctuation in the grid from race to race, because like I say, I'm a D there, struggling sort of just outside of the sort of top 5 cars, having a great weekend the weekend before, but there's cars inside that top 4 that when apart from Bora, that were nowhere near the top of the table last time out. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting championship, which 2 races in, there's so much more to come. So it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking from F1 last season, I mean, the Constructors' Championship came down to the final race in Abu Dhabi, and it was a double points race, as there is a Mercedes, that is F1 Lime. He is spun around. That car's facing the wrong direction. He's going to go ahead and do a beautiful 180. But there's an Aston Martin directly behind. He was ghosted though, and the Aston Martin of Kevin Cowell just slingshot on past. But oh, that was a rough moment there for F1 Lime. Mercedes in general not really having the greatest of races here in F1. I mean, I feel like they sort of got the Red Bull luck from F2 earlier, because Red Bull were kind of struggling throughout the duration of that F2 race. Just it feels like every turn their day would just go from bad to worse. But Red Bull are in a pretty decent spot now, and maybe, I think, something might have happened with D there. D is now fallen way back from his teammate of Emir Arsayan. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but yeah, and actually another thing worth noting too, as Bora does jump into the pit lane in that McLaren. Another thing too is that the DRS train has kind of broken up. So now the DRS train is just exclusively between Mustafa and Aaron, and Tailman's dropped off quite a bit.
I mean, I think what we're starting to see now is some wear came into those hard tyres. They'll be nowhere near fully worn, but the grip will be starting to fall off, and Aaron in front will have the cleaner air and probably won't be struggling quite as much with those tyres. What we're seeing is the cars at the back of that queue who would have experienced the more dirty air, the ones who are struggling. So I think that's what we're starting to see here. We'll wait to see whether Bora has made the right call swapping onto their mediums. If the rain doesn't come till late, it might well be the better call, because he can make that time back up now throughout the rest of the laps. And, potentially, with more rubber on the ground, might be the sort of safer option as the rain begins to trickle down at Albert Park here. So we'll wait to see. We'll wait to see. It's a big waiting game, this race, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the wait brings.
Yeah, it's a race of attrition, honestly. And oh, Aaron's race went from fantastic to not so fantastic, as he got a 10-second time penalty for speeding into pit lane. And so far, there's been kind of a trend of the season, at least for today's race, is that a lot of drivers are getting that 10-second time penalty for that track limit the speeding in the pit lane. Yeah, not great. The second driver on the day to get that penalty.
I think the pit lane entrances on the game this year are slightly different. There seems to be less grip. It seems to be a lot harder to get the car slowed down. I've suffered with it in my own races that I've completed this year, and a lot of drivers on the grid seem to be experiencing the same issues. I've got into a habit now of braking a lot earlier than what is sort of suggested, because otherwise you just run the risk. I know you might lose a tenth here or two, but I'd rather lose a couple of tenths than lose a whole 10 seconds. Like you said earlier as well, 10-second time penalty in the pits is one of the most gut-wrenching penalties you can get, along with the speeding under VSC drive-through. That is just horrific, the speeding under VSC, because not speeding under VSC, the delta penalty that you get, because the delta can be so irregular on this game as well, especially through sort of slow corner sections. When you've got the car slowed right down, even going through the slow corners, you're not going too much slower than what you would go in at race pace. So it can really mess up your delta, and you've just got to sort of watch. You just got to keep an eye on it. But yeah, the drive-through can really knock you out of a race. So can a 10-second time penalty.
Yeah, so on the topic of penalties and stuff of the sort, I found out that, I don't know what exactly triggers it, but there is a weird bug that I've seen only whenever there's a formation lap in a league race, is that sometimes some drivers will get disqualified during the formation lap, but then when you get to the actual race, it's like nothing ever happened. So it's just a weird bug that just triggers, that DSQs a driver, then un-DSQs them without any real sort of penalty. It's kind of a interesting situation. I mean, there's definitely been worse bugs in F1 games in recent times. I'm sure if you've been on the internet and you've watched any kind of compilation of bugs in F1 24, you will have seen the clip of the Aston Martin safety car falling into the void on the Red Bull ring. I haven't seen that in person, unfortunately, but luckily there hasn't been any game-breaking bugs to my knowledge that have really affected any of the drivers in this race, as Epic once again taking the outside line through the second DRS zone and just making moves happen there. I mean, that Ferrari is dialed in.
He's starting to look really racy now, Epic. Obviously moved up the grid, moved up the pack, and starting to get closer to that that top 5. Still 8 seconds off, but his race looks to have improved from where it was at. And I noticed as well, despite Bora Alkan hitting that a little bit earlier, a lap earlier, hasn't managed to sort of get closer to Aaron there. I know he's obviously he's technically net first right now because of that time penalty, but still 3 seconds off the lead. He'll need to monitor that gap to make sure it doesn't grow.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, if Aaron can get outside of that 10-second range, which, especially considering the pace of all the drivers with PSR in their username, kind of like a clan tag. I remember days when we used to call that clan tag. But anyways, on to more relevant topics. I mean, if he can get within 10 seconds or outside of 10 seconds, which is much easier said than done because the gap is only 3 seconds, he's going to drop down to fourth, which isn't super terrible in terms of how everything is going, because Amir is currently 10 seconds away from Teo Man, and so he's gonna lose position to all the PSR guys, with the exception of Amir. That is without a
I
question
think
if he keeps it.
I think that would be pretty horrible for him, though. You look at how he's raced so far today. The only driver to overtake him is Mustafa, and even that was momentarily. Aaron has led the race from pretty much start to finish, so the 10 seconds here is, has really affected what he could potentially get out of this. But there's still time. If he can get out of 10 seconds, and if the rain comes late here, then he's got every chance of keeping a hold of that P1. But we'll wait to see. The rain is going to have such a crucial impact on this race. We're still waiting for it. I said lap 20 to 22. Doesn't know my prediction is going to come true at this moment in time. But yeah, we'll see. Like I say, this race is definitely a waiting game. There's stuff starting to evolve now. The first few laps were sort of set its own bar the opening lap, but now stuff is starting to happen. The pack's starting to spread out. As I think we've just lost B29 to a disconnect.
Yeah, we did lose B29 to a disconnect, unfortunately, but sometimes that just tends to happen. And here's a battle that's kind of deja vu. It is, oh, he's just getting past the AI car of B29. Now, for those of you who remember last season, in particular the season finale at Abu Dhabi, Imadi was battling the Red Bulls in an Aston Martin there at the end. That was pretty much his big championship fight. He already had the driver's title at that point, but the Constructors' Championship was still all to play for at that point. So it's really funny actually seeing D now driving in a car that he fought against for so much of the prior season, as F1 Lime, I think, gets another penalty, so he is added onto his original penalty time. But, so your prediction is between laps 20 and 22. Mine was 23 and 24, so lap 21, no rain yet, but here's the question now we have to kind of ask, is that is it going to come so late where drivers are just not even going to bother pitting in? Like, if it comes on a lap 27 or like a 28, would you even bother trying to go into the pits at that rate?
I think it all depends on how heavy it falls. If it starts bucketing it down, it becomes a real difficulty. I'm sure there will be some drivers that box. I mean, it's a fine line. If it starts coming down on lap 26 or 27, you could lose so much time within those sort of 2 or 3 laps. But if it comes down, like you say, 28, that's quite close to the end. You probably could struggle through and not even box, but we'll see. We'll see. We're getting closer to that period now. I feel like what we're going to see is a light drizzle, like you say, that won't even cause drivers to box, but we will see.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll just have to see how this all does play out. But yeah, I mean, so it's lap 22 now. It hasn't really started raining yet. I wonder when, because we're expected to have rain here at the very tail end of this race, and we're getting to that point now. We're got about 8-ish laps of racing, well, technically about 7.5, given where these drivers are currently at the moment. But one thing to kind of talk about is that Aaron's really starting to pull away now. So that gap that was in the 3s earlier is now almost at a 5-second gap. So he's already halfway there. And I think Mustafa's going to make that all the more difficult, as the Haas pair are directly behind Bora. And, I mean, they can really make his life difficult, or they can help out their fellow teammate, which is, I'm not sure where that falls, actually, in the terms of legality. I don't think there's anything specifically against it, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I believe it is an all-Turkish top 5, which is definitely new. There's a Mercedes. Is that Will? Is that Lime again? Yeah, it's Lime again.
It's Lime. Yeah. Yeah, Lime's just unable to keep it in a straight line today. He's going to hate me for saying that. But yep, safety car caused by Lime there. Now this could really change the Grand Prix. This could really change the outcome of the day. Like you said before, the gap was growing between Erin and Bora. That gap's going to close right down now under the safety car. Does Erin box under the safety car now for these remaining laps, get rid of that 10-second time penalty, and see what he can do? Or will he risk it? Because we've still got the rain to come into play here at some point. Is he going to be able to make that time back up if he does box? It's going to be an interesting end to the race. This safety car has added some real jeopardy to it.
That's also really going to depend on the rain because, like, if I was Aaron and if this race was expected to stay dry, then I would pit in, get it done, and then jump onto the softs and try to see what I could do there. But with the threat of rain coming in, I mean, it's lap 23 now, and the rain hasn't touched the circuit just yet. So it might even be the final 3 laps of this Grand Prix where we actually start seeing that rain. And I think, okay, he's going to come in.
He's coming in. He's coming into the box. Let's see what he goes on to.
And you can hear the tires screeching as he gets slowed down enough. Doesn't want to add another 10-second time penalty. And
no, he bought every inch of rubber off those tires as he came into the pits, and now he just waits for the new set of mediums to be bolted on to the car. Cars have overtaken him in the pit lane. Bora going onto soft tires, Mustafa onto mediums, and Erin onto mediums as well. So we'll see what happens towards the end of this race. Will those softs wear out before the end? Because bearing in mind we have got a couple of laps under safety car as well to follow. You know, they could help preserve those softs and make them a strong tyre towards the end of this race.
Yeah, the rough conversion rate is about 2 safety car laps equals 1 full racing lap when it comes to that tire wear. So maybe, but I mean, I think the soft is probably the best tire to be on right now because you can really just go full tilt and full send, because even if this race does stay dry throughout the rest of this race, then we can see Bora just really start kind of pulling off into the distance. He's going to be on the quickest tire out of everybody. Although, I'll check and see if there's any... Okay, so no, that is a brand new set of soft tires that is on the McLaren of Bora. So we might see Bora just slingshot off into the distance. But, I mean, Mustafa would have definitely preferred to have Teo Man pretty much right behind him to go ahead and try to DRS train and try to catch the McLaren up ahead. B29 has rejoined the session. I mean, luckily he didn't lose a lot of time because of the safety car. We're still waiting for this pack to bunch up, and it might even be raining by the time the safety car comes in.
That would be interesting. A safety car launch on slick tyres definitely would be interesting to watch. But it all depends on this restart here. What kind of launches those cars at the front of the pack get? Obviously, Bora expected to get the better start out of the bunch on those softer tyres. But if somebody can get the jump on him on their mediums, it could make it interesting for him. Because if he gets held, if somebody was to overtake him and to hold him up, he could be caught in that dirty air. We could wear those softs out very quickly, because these softs in this game do degrade very quickly in a racing environment. You know, I've had that experience myself a lot of times so far in this game cycle. The softs don't have a very long sweet spot. You know, the first few laps on the soft tyre are the best laps on the soft tyre, and then they begin to drop off, and the longer you drive on them, the deeper the drop off becomes. So we'll wait to see. It's definitely going to be interesting. Bora needs to be on it from the safety car restart. It would be nice as a McLaren driver myself to see the McLaren take the win here. But I'm also here for the excitement, for the neutrals as well. So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, because at most, you're going to have 4 laps of full pace racing on those soft tires. So they're not really going to have a chance to really hit that cliff with the soft tires, because with the mediums, it's a pretty gradual cliff, and the hards even more so. But when you hit that cliff on the soft tires, it feels like you just got hit by a freight train. Just because you go from having a good amount of grip to you're basically a cheetah on an ice rink at that point. I mean, you might as well just be driving in the rain once those softs really start to hit that cliff. But it's really going to come down to how good of a launch can Bora get. Because, I mean, something I'm kind of predicting here, although I'm probably going to be wrong here, but I feel like we're going to get 1 lap before the rain actually hits once we get back going green again, which is looking likely to be that lap 27. They're going to go around for another lap during the safety car period, but Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a very intense, very dramatic, very amazing final micro sprint, if you even want to call it that. Basically a shootout towards the end of this race once we get back going. But it is still going to be one more tour around this Albert Park circuit behind the safety car.
I mean, lots of weaving going on. The medium runners trying to get the heat into their tyres. Those soft tyres maybe getting extra wear from the weave. The weaving in this game, it's been proven, I think, from some of the sort of videos that I've watched, that weaving in this game does take a lot out of the tyres compared to former Formula One games. Takes big chunks out of it once they get to heat, and you continue to weave, it takes big chunks out of him. So Bora needs to be careful he's not taking too much out of his tyres under this safety car, but he also needs to make sure he has got the temp, because he doesn't want to be caught on cold softs prior to the race restart.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, then if those mediums behind him are pretty much fired up and ready to go, then it kind of nullifies any advantage that the soft tire would have had going into the restart. But I don't know if we're going to have that restart yet. The cloud is still looking ominous. Don't see any rain yet, though, so the rain has not fallen yet. And I mean, it's almost at the point where you might as well just try to stick onto the slick tires you have, just because the pit stop time and the return on investment isn't going to really pay off. But safety car is coming in this lap, so we will have 3 laps of full throttle, pedal to the metal racing. Tire management is not going to be a factor, as Bora is going to go ahead and just back up this pack quite a bit, allowing that safety car to pull pretty far ahead, trying to give himself the biggest window of opportunity to go ahead and get a good start here.
Still not gone quite yet. He's going to hold that pack up right till the final moment, I feel.
Definitely. He's going to really try to back this pack up. Try to catch his stablemate napping. He's going to wait. He's going to wait. Still waiting. Still waiting. He hasn't actually went yet. So he is waiting to the last possible moment to go ahead. These drivers are itching to go. And they're off.
He's given Mustafa the slipstream up the main straight here. If he can stick with him through this through the corners ahead, he's got a good chance of some more drivers get penalties at the back of the pack.
Yeah, I think, no, Amir goes ahead and gets a penalty, so he he joins the penalty club. Dan gets a 10-second penalty for a yellow flag infringement, so there's all sorts of drama unfolding here in the final 3 laps of this race.
Yeah, lots of drama. We're going to watch it very closely to see what happens.
Oh, Phantom Fox is out. Lime is missing his front wing. Phantom Fox is done. His car is basically not in one piece anymore. But we are still green.
I'm having a torrid time of it today. Meanwhile, these front runners having an absolute beautiful time out in front. But Mustafa's sticking really nicely with Bora out in front. Can he get the overtake done before the end of the race? We'll see. Lime is now retired, I see as well.
He's retired on track, though, which might cause a bit of an issue. We'll see how that plays out. But it is going to be 2 laps left to go. I'll let you take the entirety of this up, and I'll take the final.
Yep, so we're currently following the cars at the front of the field. I mean, Bora on those soft tyres. Will they last to the end? He's followed closely by Mustafa and Erin as well, coming into the first corner. That gap is starting to grow slightly, as he's got a 3-second time penalty. Has he? Erin's got a 3-second time penalty, sorry. That's 3rd place. So he could drop as low as 6th place right now, by my calculations, before the end of this race. So he may have just chucked his opportunity of a podium away here. But the real race is between Bora and Mustafa. There's 2 racing laps to go. We're halfway through one of them. And that's so soft tyres do look like the quicker tyre at the moment. He's starting to gap Mustafa 0.7 of a second. In DRS though, Mustafa, can he make it pay, or will the other tote behind him fight him and draw him back into the pack, as he's going to get another dose of DRS here, Mustafa. Getting closer, but not quite close enough yet. Those soft tyres have too much pace around the corner for the gap to close enough. So when you're in that DRS, you can make a move. And also, I imagine that Bora's got a lot of battery saves. from those safety car laps as well.
Indeed, we're going to go ahead and kick off the final lap of this Grand Prix. It is still all to play for here. And pretty much everybody in that top 6 is within DRS range of each other, so it can really go anybody's way, with Mustafa likely going to be the favorite to win if he can get past Bora. But Bora has got that grip advantage on those brand new soft tires. Going to go ahead and navigate his way through Sector 1, going through the chicane, and now he's about to go flat out and try to go ahead and extend that gap, or at minimum just keep Mustafa behind as we see him go through the dip. Go to the left hand, and now he's going to go flat out through Sector 2, going up to this big DRS zone for the last time in this Grand Prix. It's pretty much make or break now for Mustafa. He's going to go for it. Mustafa going to try to send it around the outside. Does he got the move? Yes, he does. Mustafa's got the lead.
What a move that is.
He's going to try to put pedal to the metal now. Can he extend? He's going to DRS again. So the weird quirk about this track is if you have DRS in the first part of the Sector 2 DRS zone, you're going to get it immediately again. And with a tremendous last lap pass, if he can hold it in for this next corner, which he does, Mustafa is going to take a race win here for Haas, and it is going to be a fantastic drag race to the line. Mustafa wins and takes the fastest lap to boot.
What a race that was. What a finish as well. We said that it will all evolve and sort of come to a big crescendo at the end, and it certainly did, as drivers still getting time penalties as we finished the last lap of the race here. But yeah, I mean, Mustafa, what a drive that was. Stuck with it, was patient the whole way, and in the end, like I said, those medium tyres became better than the softs at the right moment. He used DRS to his advantage. Was just 2 tenths behind him coming into that DRS straight, and just took full advantage of it. Took the dive when he needed to. You know, what a result that is. You've got to feel sorry for Bora. That, you know, he looked to be in control on that safety car when he boxed for softs, but unfortunately just couldn't hold out for the entirety of the remainder of the race. But yeah, very, very, very interesting race, and a rain not present at any point, I don't think.
Yeah, if it did fall, it was light enough to where we couldn't even see it, and the drivers didn't really feel it on track. But yeah, I mean, the big problem is that the DRS zones are super powerful on this track, as we've seen from Mustafa, who takes the checker flag, takes a victory here in Australia in round 2. It's a double Haas podium, and that's going to do absolute wonders for them in the constructors. So once again, fastest lap goes to Mustafa. Driver of the day is Imad, although we'll have an actual vote for it in the Discord. But yeah, we're just going to go in and run you through our finishing results. It is Mustafa taking P1, and then it is Bora, Teoman, Aaron, Imad, Amir, Kevin, Epic, CJ, Dan Lutton, and then we have 301 Will, B29, Keezy, and then the drivers who, actually Keezy did DNF there towards the end, but he's still showing 2 laps down. And then our other retirements are F1 Lime, Fanafox, Mad Jonas, and GG, who was taken out at the first lap of this Grand Prix. Now, Oracle, what are your thoughts on this race as a whole?
It's an interesting one from start to finish. We thought we were going to have some rain to make it super interesting for us. That rain never came, but the race itself did evolve towards the end, all because that safety car caused by F1 Lime. His spin out towards the end of the race. I mean, what a finish. What a finish. Those cars at the front are very mature drives, very professional drives. And, you know, Mustafa waiting for that, you know, opportune moment, like I said earlier in the race, at that opportune moment to make the pass stick and to take the lead of the race. Those Turks from 1 to 4 in the race look very strong. I think it's going to be hard to topple them over the rest of the season. But yeah, what a race that was. I can only hope the excitement continues into round 3.
Indeed. And speaking of round 3, join us again next week starting at 7:30 p.m. UK time, or I believe that's around 2:30, or actually 1:30 Eastern Standard Time in the United States, when we head to China for Formula 2. F2 goes around there, and then for F1 it is a sprint weekend. So F2 had the sprint this time. Next week it is F1's turn to go ahead and have a sprint around the Shanghai International Circuit. And on behalf of Oracle, my name is Patrick Coleman, aka Rekus, and we have been your hosts and commentators for today's race here at TFR eSports Season 24. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe, turn on the notifications if you are brand new here, and we will see you guys next week. Have a good night.